Sup, y'all, it's me, it's your boy Asmongold, and today I figured I'd talk to you guys a little bit about some of the clarifications that Ian Hazzikostas, he's one of the lead game designers of World of Warcraft. I think he focuses mostly on dungeons and raids, made today in an interview with MMO Champion. If you guys want to take a look at the original interview, because I'm not going to be talking about everything that they went over in the interview, of course, I'm just going to be focusing on some specifics. You can go ahead and check that out in the video description, but what we're really going to be focusing on in this video is what he said about challenge mode dungeons, raids, world events, and also reputations. Now, this interview in general, I thought was, there was a lot of good news for me, and so there were a lot of concerns I had about challenge modes, and that's the first thing I really want to go over with you guys, because that was the biggest concern. And honestly, what he said about challenge modes today really kind of made me look forward to them more, and I think that they're really kind of going in the right direction in terms of their philosophy with how they're going to be handling them. Now, one of my problems that I had with challenge modes is the potential of having certain comps and certain groups just being much more powerful than other comps and other groups for challenge modes would make it to where certain people wouldn't really be able to achieve a certain level of gear and other people would, and it would give them kind of an unfair advantage. Apparently what's going to be happening in challenge modes in Legion is that the gear is going to cap out, and so let's say there's a challenge mode level, I think this is how it's supposed to work, it's challenge mode level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and the top tier, let's say it's level 20 where it drops gear. Well, you can do level 21, but it's still only going to drop level 20 gear. And so that means that and they balance the challenge modes at that higher level. Think of this a lot like gold challenge modes now, especially in the Pandaria, where any real comp can pretty much complete gold challenge modes, but it does take an amazing comp and a really good comp to push maybe realm best or even more so world best times. And so what they're really trying to do is accommodate both of those people, while giving people this way that they can pretty much achieve the highest level of power rewards or gear, while at the same time giving people who do want to make specific comps and push for leaderboards. And they are going to be the goal, that's what they said, they're probably going to be adding leaderboards into these challenge modes so it can have content for the people who are very competitive in doing that as well. And so that was a really big relief to me, because now I know that people there's going to be I think the difficulty of these is probably going to be somewhere around the difficulty of the gold challenge modes, give or take. And so that was something I was very, very glad about. And also they said that the loot is probably not going to actually exceed mythic rating, and so I was really glad to hear that as well. And my understanding and probably expectation for this is that you're going to need mythic rating gear to even push the challenge mode times that you'd need to get the and I'll talk about this in a second, to get the rewards that would be mythic level gear quality. And so here's how I think that they're going to be doing the rewards. What I talked about earlier, and he mentioned this again, is pretty much just weekly reward, and kind of one big reward for your best time that you did on in the challenge modes for the week. I think that weekly reward is what's going to be, it's going to be the new version of your Hellfire Citadel raid cache. And so I guess probably every Tuesday, it's going to take your best time, and then I don't know if it's going to mail you a piece or a little box, and it's probably going to be an RNG box. That's probably what it's going to be. I don't really know, it's just what it seems like. And so in order to actually get to that get that mythic level box, you're probably going to have to actually have mythic gear to get the mythic box. Or if you're a very good heroic player, you can push for the time and maybe get a mythic box. And so I think that all of these changes are really good, because it's making sure that everybody who's kind of going to be doing these challenge mode dungeons is going to be getting something else out of them, and not be able to be kind of, I don't know, left behind or kind of systematically disadvantaged because of their class or something like that, because they are going to be balanced in order to get the highest tier rewards. I guess this, you'll have to have good gear for this, but all classes, and probably at least there's going to be some leniency in terms of the specs that you can play, and the group comp that you have can achieve that high level gear, assuming that they have the gear level that's that the dungeon was kind of tuned for. So all of those things are really good. Apparently they said that there aren't going to be unique armor sets, but they are going to be doing kind of artifact skins. Artifact skins, I think, are going to be a new form of reward in the game. We're going to be seeing a lot of artifact skins, probably in raiding, through killing mythic bosses, probably in these challenge mode dungeons, maybe through reputations, and also through PvP. And so you're going to be able to do all of these different things to change your appearance in the game and do this stuff. Honestly, I think that this is a really good way way of doing it. I had talked about this before in Wards of Draenor, how I think that they need to add new types of rewards into the game. Like, hypothetically, if instead of Legion, it was like an expansion with like into seas, right? And I know that obviously the Broken Isles is in the water, but like where you have to sail around and you can have different boats and stuff, and like so the boats would be like a new type of reward. And I think that was the example I used. Well, these artifact weapons and artifact skins are fulfilling that same function. One thing that could be a problem with that is obviously they are just aesthetic rewards. My understanding is that, I mean, while you can get artifact power, now if you guys don't know what that is, your artifact weapons use artifact power to just pretty much level them up. It's like pretty much experience, I think. And besides that, like, a lot of this stuff is kind of aesthetic, and it's just appearance. It's not an actual power level, and so it might not necessarily be as compelling for many players. But knowing that they're not going to be scaling the loot indefinitely, but you're still going to be able to push the times if you so choose to, I think all of those decisions are really well done, and thank God I remembered this. So there's one other thing that they're talking about, is how the keystones are going to work. My understanding is that you get one keystone per week, and you have your keystone is empowered, and once you use your keystone, one player uses their keystone per dungeon, and after the player uses their keystone per dungeon, if they complete the dungeon and they miss out on the timer and they don't basically make the timer to where they can upgrade their keystone and go to the next level of the challenge mode dungeon, what they do is they still get the loot, but their keystone is no longer empowered, and so empowered keystones will still reward loot, whereas the unempowered keystones will not reward loot. But if you want to repeat the dungeon and maybe push for the timer again, you can move up to the next level. I don't know if that will re-empower your keystone or not. I don't know how that's going to work, but I thought that was a really good idea. Now, obviously, that is kind of removing a lose condition, and I have complained a lot in the past about them making the game to where you can't lose at it, but I think there's just a lot of like just emergent gameplay, and I've talked about this a lot recently. I had to stop using that word. Maybe if I keep using it in a couple of videos, I'll have to stop using it. That kind of what will happen where you have somebody get pissed off halfway through and leave the dungeon, and then you can't find somebody else, and so somebody's keystone gets wasted for the week, and they're not going to be able to get any loot out of it. And I don't really consider that to be a very fun thing, and so I think that obviously like having the empowered keystones and having them become unempowered after you receive loot, with using that keystone is probably a very good system, and there's also kind of a very good balance. I think these challenge mode dungeons are very, very well designed to be rewarding for a lot of different people and to accommodate a lot of different types of play styles. Now for raiding, obviously, people always ask about the challenge mode, or sorry, not challenge mode, mythic level dungeons being cross-realm. They're not going to do that because they want to make they want to kind of preserve server communities and kind of having server races and like server like guild rivalries. I think kind of adds something into the game, not for a lot of people, but for the people it does, I think they do enjoy it, and people do get a lot out of like trying to move up into server ranks and all that. And so whenever you have cross-server mythic raiding, that kind of removes those like races as much, which is why they're probably going to implement it later on in the future with different, I guess, like patches, the same as they're going to be doing in 6.2.3 with Hellfire Citadel, and they did with Blackheart Foundry whenever 6.2 came out. So all of those changes I think are pretty much positive. Personally, I think that the real problem with cross-realm mythic raiding is that you have to be doing it cross-realm. What I think they really need to do is they just need to merge servers. I know that we talked about this a lot in I did a stream last night. I guess it's 2 nights ago now that I put out the video. That morning, actually, I was up really late. Anyway, point is that there are obviously a lot of people who they have their server identity, they come from Sentinels, or I came from Thrall, or Kel'Thuzad or something. And yeah, I mean, it's going to kind of suck for some people that they're not going to be able to still be on the server, but I really do think that they should just straight up merge the servers and kind of bite the bullet. And of course it might be unpopular with some people, but I do think it would be for the best. Now another thing, and I remember I know that Ian has a Hazzikostas is one of the lead game designers, and I mean, like, this dude is also a scarab lord, so he's actually like a real player in the game. So that is also very reassuring, and that you actually have somebody that knows really, the game internally. And I remember watching a video where he was actually, I think, like doing a guide or talking over like a ZA bear run, and so it's not really a surprise that they're thinking about, adding in smaller raids, because Hellfire Citadel, you guys know, is 13 bosses, and so adding in smaller raids such as like Tempest Keep, they use the example Tempest Keep and Serpent Shrine Caverns, are BC dungeons, and they only had like, I think, like Serpent Shrine Caverns had like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 bosses, and Tempest Keep, I think, had like 5. And so smaller dungeons, and what that's really going to allow people to do, and their goal with that, and this was also a really good thing that they had in Wrath of the Lich King with VOA, Vault of Archivon, is that people could just go in there, kill a few trash mobs, and kill the boss and get out of there. It really wasn't a very big commitment, and it wasn't a big time commitment for people, and for a lot of people, they don't really have a lot of time that they can devote. Like, they can't just like sit down for 3 hours and guaranteed, like raid through an entire instance. So having these shorter instances, can potentially allow people to clear them more quickly. And in a way, it kind of makes them more accessible if they are shorter. Obviously, there's a lot more to it, but I think that that's a good change. And also, like whenever you have Hellfire Citadel, you're basically in the same zone the whole time. It's like, I know like the Zul'Horak area is much more different than I guess like the Archimond area, which is much more different than like the Hellfire Reaver area, and they have done a very good job in Hellfire Citadel, I think, kind of stratifying it and making it much more different. And I think the best example for this is Siege of Orgrimmar. Siege of Orgrimmar had a very big, I guess like range of environments and areas and feels to it. Whenever you go all the way down to Garrosh's, I guess like lair or whatever, I think Siege of Orgrimmar did a really good job at that. But what I think they're going to be trying to do here is, obviously it can't really be as different as Serpent Shrine Caverns and Tempest Keep. And so they're going to have these smaller raids so they can have very, very different environments. People can kind of really, really like one raid or really, really not like another raid. And I think that that's probably a pretty good change that they're making, and I'm really glad to see that. They also said that the game will have 2 raid zones at launch and a number of content patches following that. That, of course, like all of those things kind of do bother me, because WoD had a number of content patches and raid patches after that. The problem is that number was 1. And so hopefully, we'll see in Legion 2 or 3 raid or 3 or 4 raid tiers. I'd really like to see 3 or 4 raid tiers, at least 3. Maybe 4, in the same way that like Sunwell was like kind of tier 6, but all the gear was better, and so it wasn't really exactly tier 6, And so I would really like to see them go back to that model, and hopefully having these smaller raids will allow them to do that. So it's not like just some huge juggernaut raid like Siege of Orgrimmar or Hellfire Citadel, and it's smaller raids, and so it's not really it's not really as complex. Like, imagine if like Heimal was its own raid tier. I think it would probably need another like smaller raid to go along with it. Kind of how like it would have like Gruul Slayer or something. But you guys can kind of get where I'm coming from. So there are going to be obviously a lot of different things that you can get out of these like world events, and they're really pushing these world events, and which are basically like the bounties that you can do. Now, my understanding is that the world events are basically Garrison Missions 2.0, except for the fact that you're actually the one doing the Garrison missions. Which, I mean, like, imagine if you had you could do all those quests every day. In your garrison table, it actually, like, you went out, you killed the Hydras, you went out and you did whatever else, and you got these, even better rewards. I think that that's what these bounties are going to be pretty much doing, where you pretty much just take the place of your followers. And I honestly, like, I'm pretty excited to see that, especially with how they handled it in Diablo 3. I think that the Diablo 3, I guess, like, the in-game system it got a lot of people, it kept a lot of people playing the game for quite a while, especially for how flat the content was as soon as you pretty much reached a certain plateau. And so what they kind of said is that they're going to be, I guess, like rare, bounty and like world events, kind of like now in Garrison missions. Like there's like basically a parallel here, except for, as I said, you're not your followers aren't the ones doing the missions, you are. And so you guys know, like, obviously, you're not going to be getting rare Garrison missions every single time, like, I don't know, like every single hour, but you'll get like maybe 1 or 2, like really big ones a week, and maybe like one, kind of good one every single day. And so people can go out and I guess like Ian Hazzikostas, he said that you didn't really have to do all of the world events. And I always am kind of worried, like, okay, is this like kind of required or not really required? And like, because there have been a lot of times where they said, oh, well, you don't really have to do this, except for the fact that if you, it's like the legendary ring. Well, you don't have to have the legendary ring. It's just you can't join a raiding guild without it, right? And so I'm very curious to see how this is going to turn out. I also don't know if there's going to be a weekly cap on artifact power. And I think if there is, that could possibly be a good thing, or it could also possibly be a bad thing. And so I'm very curious to see how the artifact power things are going to turn out. And also he kind of said that while the world events can reward these really good pieces of gear like the legendaries that we talked about, and I'm very curious and I guess anxious to know how exactly can we actually target these legendary drops, and is there something that players' skill can do? Like, can I kill really elite mobs or really difficult mobs, and then that'll give me maybe a 1% chance of getting the legendary item rather than a 0.1% chance? And that's something that I'd really like to see, but we'll see if that happens. But he did say that the best, most reliable source of getting raid gear, and the best, well, not raid gear, but the best gear in the game is going to be raiding, and then it's going to be, in this order, raiding, dungeons, and world events. Now, obviously, that begs the question, where does professions come in here? And I don't know, maybe he just didn't say it. I highly doubt that professions, all professions, are going to be worse than all of the other content in the game. I don't really think that would be good design, honestly, but who knows? What do I know? So I'm curious to see how that's going to go. But obviously, I'm really happy to see a lot of these changes. I'm really kind of curious, and people did criticize something that I said in my previous video, is the RNG. I'm not necessarily against RNG entirely. It's just I want some kind of way to where I can negate that RNG with some level of play and time, and I don't really feel that the game right now in terms of raid gear gives me that option. And so there obviously is a happy medium, and I just really hope that in Legion they can meet that happy medium. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is reputations. Now, basically, he said that Ian Hazzikostas said that a lot of the reputations are going to be similar to the 10 and jungle reputations, where you do quests and stuff like that, but we're still going to have things like he used the Timbermaw hold as an example, probably similar to the Sabermaw, and where you just go out there and you kill mobs, right? You just kill things for a few hours. I'll tell you guys the truth. I've just been killing Sabermaw all over the place. Why? No reason. I'm just thinking about getting that red boar. And so it's a time sink that I might want to do once or twice a month. And so they might have a couple of grinding reputations in there, but the majority of the reputations are going to be based on some sort of quests or something like that. And also some of the reputations that you're going to be getting, the reputation you're going to be getting is going to be through these emissaries. I'm assuming they're probably going to show up in the main city, like in Dalaran or somewhere around there, and you go and you pick up the quests from these emissaries, and then you go do them, and it gives you reputation with the faction. I don't know if there's going to be kind of a thing where you get the base quests, but then you can also farm mobs. I have no idea. Also, another thing is he talked about the rewards from reputations, and one thing that I thought was really great that he said is that they're going to be adding, reputations, I think, are going to be looking a lot like they did in Wrath of the Lich King, and also in Cataclysm, where whenever you probably get exalted, you're going to be able to buy the rewards with gold, and he said he wanted to avoid the same problem that they had in Mists of Pandaria, where there was this double gating thing, where you not only had to be exalted with the faction, like the Quaxi or Golden Lotus or something, but you also had to have the Valor points for it. And so you're probably going to have either one or the other. And honestly, all this kind of stuff really just kind of looks really promising. And if they're implementing this, and this is going to come out in the same way that I think it is, I think we can look at a really promising, really engaging, and really fun expansion. And so the more I've been hearing about Legion, the better I've been feeling about it. I don't think, especially with the WoD fiasco, I don't think that they're going to be canceling a lot of this stuff. Now, if they do, of course this could happen, right? Of course it could happen. I just don't think it will. Because they've spent so much time not promising things, not announcing things unless they're going to happen for sure. And so all of that stuff, I think that if they're telling it to us now, it's probably going to happen, especially since there isn't that much time, really in development time because you have to think like there's like certain amounts of development time, debugging, beta testing time. Probably I would say could be potentially like a lot of the development in the expansion. It could be mostly done, and they could be moving towards like debugging it or beta testing it, or not like internally testing it. I think we'll see a beta test very soon as well. And in order for them to probably meet, unfortunately, probably a summer 2016 date. But as I said before, and I'll say again, I mean, if the expansion's really good, I don't mind waiting. And as long as it's like I don't mind waiting for really quality content, and this is what it seems to be. I think I know that like some people are pissed off about not getting flying at the start. It's kind of disappointing that we don't know whenever we're going to get it, but I don't really think it's a big deal. So I just wanted to mention that as well, because I knew that was a point of contention. Was not really with some people, with a very small minority of people, but for those people, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. But I would like to know, like, when are we going to get flying, just so I know, you know what I mean? I would rather know than not know, if that makes sense. So anyway, guys, really promising, really great changes, especially with the challenge mode dungeons. Pretty much alleviated all of my concerns that I had with them, and so I really, really am looking forward to getting on the beta or the alpha and showing you guys how this stuff is going to be working, functionally in the game. And so for now, that's pretty much all I got. Thanks for watching, and like, comment, subscribe.